You need to unmute.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for calling this important hearing. I just would want to begin by framing this in the historical context. I mean, defense contractor fraud, military fraud goes back to the 19th century. Abraham Lincoln complained about it, which is why we have the Key-Tam process. But billions and billions of dollars have been ripped off from American taxpayers, as established in both thousands of criminal cases as well as civil cases, reclaiming money for the taxpayers. Ms. Hall, I want to give you the chance to respond to some of the statements that TransDigm made about the IG report. Mr. Stein said that the IG audit has fundamental legal and accounting errors, and even the DoD IG doesn't support the standard that was used for TransDigm's audit. How would you respond to those statements?
Thank you for the question and the opportunity to respond to the statements made about our report. TransDigm took a lot of those statements out of context. In fact, we performed this audit under generally accepted government auditing principles, which we followed robustly. And in our report, we distinguish in our scope and methodology section exactly what we did, exactly what we looked at. So for this audit, we applied a 15% profit rate based on what we looked at with the cost data I mentioned earlier. It falls within the range of the 13.3 and 18% benchmark we've used on over 20 years of auditing the spare parts environment. Also, as far as
Can I just stop you there for a second? I mean, that's really nitpicking when we're talking about 1,000% profit margin in some cases that was made by the contractor here. So whether you call it 15, 20, or 25%, I mean, we're looking at ludicrous hyper billing of the government, right?
Correct. The environment that the Department of Defense has to negotiate in right now with TransDigm is very cumbersome because they are a sole source. They've created this sole source environment. And in a sole source environment, there aren't competitive market forces. There aren't other alternatives. And Mr. Stein mentioned commercial packages that his company provided to our audit team. I'd like to note that in those packages, we did not see like quantities for comparison, which would have been a fundamental consideration for our analysis. And also fundamentally, a contracting officer determines the commerciality, not an audit team and not a government contractor. So in this case,
well, Madam Chair, I'll complete my questioning of her afterwards. Let me go to Mr. Howley. Do you agree with the IG's finding that TransDigm did refuse to provide the cost data in 24 cases when it was requested by the contracting officers?
I don't know the specific answer on those 24 parts. What I will say is that almost every one of these parts is a commercial part. The preferred way of doing price analysis here in the FARs, it gives a preferred way of doing it. And the preferred way is to compare it to price data, comparable commercial price data. We submitted the commercial price data and the commercial justification for every product. And in total, the government is buying at a 25% discount to the commercial price, not the commercial price on some price list, but the commercial price that commercial customers are paying. And that is the preferred method of doing this as defined in the regulation, not cost analysis.
But why would you not provide the cost data in those 24 cases, which ended up being exorbitantly overpriced?
I'll repeat the same thing. The regulations that govern this have a specific methodology by which you determine reasonableness of price. And commercial pricing is a preferred method.
I got you. So, I mean, essentially,
I'd also add another.
Forgive me, I'll give you a chance in a minute if I've got it. But the point I want to make here is the point some of my colleagues have made, which is, well, this is perfectly legal. When they asked you that question, you were under no obligation to answer. So the question is really the one being posed by the chair. do we need to change that rule for contracts under $2 million? Because it looks like a gaping loophole where the contracting officers can try to determine what the cost is. The contractors have no reason to comply with that. They don't. And of course, the taxpayers get ripped off because of it. I mean, there's that one email saying that turning over the information would make a $40 to $50 million ballpark difference in terms of the profitability of the contract. So, you guys are operating within the rules as they're written, and I think that should be an incentive for us to change those rules because it's a ripoff of the taxpayers.
Thank you, Mr. Raskin. Your time has expired. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Cloud, is now recognized.